Well, well, well. DC is amazing again. Movie review. Well then, here we are, my review of Shazam. First off, let me say, this movie is amazing. What? I know, right? A DC movie that's actually good? I can honestly say that I'm proud to be a DC fan again. This movie is a prime example of how well DC can do when they're not just trying to catch up to Marvel all the time. I honestly wish this is how DC had been doing their movies all this time, but as we all know, that's not the case. DC has so much potential with their characters, but they always just throw it straight out the window just to try to catch up to Marvel. I think that this movie is a perfect example of how DC should do all their movies from now on. Alright, on with the actual review. This part will be spoiler free, so if you haven't seen this movie yet but want to know how it is, you'll be okay. So I went into this movie kind of expecting it to fail even though I'd seen the Rotten Tomatoes score, but I was pleasantly surprised. This movie is full of great moments. It has great acting, fights, good comedic timing, a well-made script, and great characters. I'm really glad that we finally get to see how well DC can do with their characters when they're just not trying to beat their competition constantly. Now let's talk about Zachary Levi. If you didn't already know, Zachary Levi is playing our main man, Shazam. Shazam! His performance in this movie is one of the key components that makes it as good as it is. If you didn't already know, Shazam is a 14-year-old boy named Billy Batson who gets his powers from a wizard named Shazam. When he says the magic word, Shazam! He turns into a full-grown man with superpowers. I really feel like Zachary Levi did an absolutely amazing job at making his role seem authentic. When you see him on screen, he actually comes across as a 14-year-old boy that's in a grown man's body with superpowers. Okay, now I have to move on to the spoiler section because I really can't talk about this movie anymore without spoiling it in any way. So, if you don't want to know anything about this movie, go ahead and skip to this time code to see my rating on it. First off, oh my god, this movie is so good. There are so many moments in this movie that make it a precedent for how DC should be doing things with their movies. Unlike previous movies like Justice League and Batman vs Superman, you can tell the people who made this movie actually cared about the characters. They actually read comics on the characters because they want us to enjoy this movie. Let me just tell you about some things that happened in this movie that really, really made me happy. First off, the Shazam family was in the movie. I know that the kids who are the Shazam family are in the movie, but honestly, I didn't expect them to turn into the Shazam family in this movie. I thought that they would have done it, I don't know, in a sequel or something like that. It's this really awesome moment in the third act when Dr. Sivana drops the staff that he took from the wizard Shazam's lair. Billy grabs it and remembers that Shazam was the last wizard out of the 6 of them that there were. Billy sees that his foster family would make 6 of them, so he grabs the staff, tells them to hold on to it, and say the word Shazam. They all say it, and the next thing you know, we have the Shazam family on the silver screen. I was so excited to see this. I had no idea that they were going to do it. They all end up kicking Dr. Sivana's ass along with the 7 deadly sins that he had in his eye orb thing. This thing here. Another thing that I really liked is how they touched on cliches that are in other superhero movies and just movies in general. We've all seen at least one superhero movie where the villain is monologuing to the hero and they're standing a great distance apart from each other.
You sly dog! You got me monologuing! I can't believe it.
There was a moment like this in the movie where they were flying mid-air and Sivana was monologuing to Shazam, or Billy, whatever you want to call him. And it's funny because he's talking, just monologuing like a villain does. And then it goes to Billy's perspective and he's just completely inaudible. And Billy's just like, what? What are you saying? So I thought that was a funny way to touch on cliches, kind of make fun of it. It was a good example of how well the producers understand comedic timing and know when to make a joke. The movie also has its fair share of serious moments in it, such as when Billy's trying to fit in with his new foster family and when Freddy's calling Billy out for being kind of a dick. A really good example of this is when Billy saves the bus that falls off the highway.
Dude, did you see that?
Yeah, you electrocuted a bus and almost killed these people.
Sure, he saved the bus, but up until that point, he hadn't been using his powers for much hero work. After Billy saves the bus, he's freaking out because this is the first time he saved people with his newfound powers. But then Freddy walks up to him and starts calling him out because he's being kind of a jerk, and he hasn't really used his powers for any good.
You literally did the opposite of what a superhero is supposed to do.
I really like the mix of serious and funny moments that they had in this movie. Had a pretty good balance. Alright, this next section is just going to be me talking about stuff that I want to bring up. One thing I really like is how accurate the suits were to the comics. In the third act of the movie, when Savannah is fighting the Shazam family, you get a really good look at their suits, and every one of them is just spot on. All their reactions to being grown-ups with superpowers is just amazing too, because on the inside, they're just kids who got these powers. Another thing I really liked is how much it reminded me of Shazam in Justice League Unlimited. For those of you who don't know, Justice League Unlimited was a cartoon back in 2004, I believe. It was more than just the 7 that we started off with in the previous cartoon. You know, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, Hawkgirl. In Justice League Unlimited, there's like hundreds of superheroes. Shazam ended up being one of them, and I really love in this movie how much he reminded me of watching Justice League Unlimited. It was one of my favorite cartoons growing up, and I think that Justice League Unlimited is probably one of his most comic-accurate portrayals of that character. So I really like the nostalgia that I got from watching this movie. Alright, time for the rating. Drumroll, please. I give Shazam a solid 9 out of 10. This movie is definitely worth seeing, so if you haven't seen it yet, go see it. And honestly, I really think that it deserves the 91% that it got on Rotten Tomatoes. If not, a little bit more. Okay, that does it for this video. Have a good day.
Wow, you're still here? Well, since you guys made it this far, go ahead and leave a like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with your friends to get their opinion on it. Also, why don't you go ahead and check out one of my other videos. They are right here. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't have anything else to do until Endgame comes out, so I'm just gonna chill out here on YouTube.